What happens when the City of Lights starts to lose its shine? Paris, renowned for its cultural richness and economic prowess, is facing a surprising trend. Many are choosing to leave. But why? Did you know that Paris is one of the most densely populated cities in Europe, with around 55,000 people per square mile? This high population density, coupled with skyrocketing rent prices, has led to a growing sentiment of disillusionment among its residents. Moreover, traffic congestion is a significant challenge in Paris. The GTC Rankings in 2024 reveal that Paris currently leads worldwide and surpasses other major cities like New York and London. But that is not all. We look into the underlying socio-economic issues that are prompting many to reconsider the allure of living in Europe's City of Lights. Historical context. Paris has evolved from a small Gallo-Roman settlement to the vibrant metropolis it is today. The city's transformation began under the rule of kings like Louis XIV, who epitomized absolute monarchy and fostered cultural flourishing during the 17th century. The Age of Enlightenment further propelled Paris as a center of intellectual and cultural activity. The French Revolution and the Napoleonic era brought profound changes, reshaping the city's social and political landscape. The 19th century saw architectural transformations under Napoleon III and Baron Haussmann, who modernized Paris with grand boulevards and parks. In the 20th century, Paris's role in major historical events, including the French Revolution and both World Wars, increased its position as a key player on the European stage. However, the very factors that contributed to its rise have also sown the seeds of contemporary challenges. Economic success. Paris's tourism sector, with landmarks like the Eiffel Tower, Notre Dame, and the Louvre, attracted over 44 million visitors in 2022, generating €19.6 billion in revenue. The city's influence on fashion is also significant, with brands like Chanel, Louis Vuitton, and Dior, and events like Paris Fashion Week. As a financial hub, Paris houses the La Défense business district and is a key EU location for multinationals and startups. Recent economic achievements, such as the successful bid to host the 2024 Summer Olympics, further bolster Paris's international standing. The preparations for the event are expected to generate significant economic activity, create jobs, and lead to infrastructure improvements that will benefit the city long after the Games have concluded. However, the 2024 Olympic Games in Paris are not only a celebration of sports, but also a test of the city's capacity to accommodate the influx of visitors. The French Minister of Transport's recent call for Parisians to take time off during the Games has raised eyebrows, with some interpreting it as a subtle invitation to leave the city. The aim is to reduce traffic congestion and ease the transportation of the 800,000 spectators expected daily. This call comes amid concerns about the city's ability to handle the influx, especially on its already strained public transport system. Public discontent and the search for solutions. In France, known for its economic success, a wave of public discontent is challenging the perception of national well-being. This dissatisfaction extends beyond agriculture to various societal aspects, reflecting a wider disillusionment. The agricultural sector, however, is a prominent symbol of this unrest, with farmers protesting against the conflict between environmental regulations and economic sustainability. The rising costs of farming essentials have pushed many to financial hardship, highlighting a significant shift from the more sustainable livelihoods of previous generations. The economic strain is intensified by bureaucratic obstacles, water usage restrictions, and competition from imports, particularly from the Ukraine, which have been allowed into the EU to support its economy during the war. The farmers' protests are a part of a broader European movement challenging the EU's drive to cut CO2 emissions, arguing that it undermines the goal of achieving self-sufficiency in food production. The political implications of these protests are significant, with far-right parties such as France's National Rally capitalizing on the farmers' grievances. The growing narrative that the EU is detrimental to farmers is gaining traction, as evidenced by opinion polls showing overwhelming public support for the farmers' cause. This discontent is likely to influence the upcoming elections to the European Parliament, potentially shifting the balance towards parties that oppose current climate policies. Housing crisis. Paris's attractiveness and historical importance have led to high property prices, making central housing unaffordable for many residents. The housing shortage is worsened by limited availability and strict urban development policies that conserve historic architecture, reducing new construction. The rise of short-term rentals like Airbnb has further strained the market, as properties are rented to tourists, decreasing long-term housing stock. This crisis is changing the city's social fabric, with lower-income families being pushed to the outskirts or forced to leave Paris due to the lack of affordable housing. Migration and multiculturalism. In 2024, Paris's approach to multiculturalism and integration is under scrutiny, highlighted by widespread protests against France's new immigration law. Passed in December 2023 with the backing of far-right lawmakers, the legislation has ignited a firestorm of opposition. The law links rental assistance and family benefits for foreigners to specific employment conditions, leading critics to argue that it creates unequal social rights between citizens and non-employed foreigners. Yet, the relationship between the native French population and immigrant communities has been fraught with tension. The recent protests are a continuation of this complex history, raising questions about identity, belonging, and immigrant rights in French society. The cost of a high tax burden. In 2023, France once again topped the charts for compulsory taxation on the average wage earner, surpassing Belgium and Austria. The average French employee dedicates work until July 17th each year solely to cover taxes and social contributions, a testament to the country's hefty tax burden. Did you know that the average employee faces a tax burden of 54.1%? Meaning they have no direct control over a significant portion of their earnings for more than half the year? Despite this high level of taxation, there's a growing sentiment among French taxpayers that their contributions aren't translating into efficient public services. A study by the Institute Economic Molinari highlights this disconnect, showing that France's investment in areas like education doesn't yield commensurate returns, with the country ranking only 17th out of 27 European nations in aligning education with the labor market. This discrepancy has led to taxpayer frustration, as the average French employee sees a smaller net salary compared to their peers in countries with similar social systems but lower tax rates. Economic policies. The manufacturing sector in France is experiencing a downturn, with the Purchasing Managers' Index declining towards the end of 2023. The possibility of a technical recession looms as production and purchasing activity decrease. This is exacerbated by geopolitical uncertainties and an austerity budget announced by French Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire, aiming to reduce the deficit to 4.4% of economic output. However, the austerity measures are criticized for potentially neglecting the adverse effect on households and consumers' financial health, leading France towards one of its largest budget deficits in recent history. Paris's historic allure and economic success are now overshadowed by over-tourism, gentrification, and rising living costs. The housing crisis and controversial immigration policies are fueling discontent, deepening social divides.